Welcome to Among the Lilies. This is a show for ladies who are tired of pretending and are ready to be real. So, if you're a parent, or maybe you're pregnant and you're about to become a parent, I'm going to let you in on a big secret that all of us parents know. You are going to stuff up. You will royally mess your kids up. It's just a fact. It's just a fact. You know why? Because you are not perfect. You are a flawed, sinful individual. And before you think, oh my goodness, she's pointing her finger at me and saying I'm flawed and sinful. Me too. I know this is hard to believe, but I am a flawed, sinful human person. And I mess up. I stuff up all the time. It's hard being a parent. It is. It's really hard. And you are going to mess your kids up. I had a girl recently share, I won't say her name. She's a beautiful, beautiful mom, but we have this Among the Lilies Marco Polo group, and it's for my patron members. And this woman is just so loving and so patient. And I've known her, oh gosh, I've known her since she was a teenager. And she is far holier than me. I knew when she was a teenager that she was holier than me. She's always been composed, and she's put together nicely. She comes from a really wonderful, beautiful family. She has background in psychology, therapy. Her mom teaches La Leche, does breastfeeding coaching, birthing. She's just she's just lovely. And she hadn't had a lot of sleep, and just kind of her child pooped on the floor and then stepped in it, and she just kind of lost it, right? Which I think I would have done the same thing in the same situation. And she was so beautiful sharing it with us and just saying, I came here because I need to share it with someone, but I just feel really bad. I feel like I scarred my child. The child looked at her and was just hurt, right? We've all been there. Today I did it to my son, where I was trying to prove a point with him, and he's a rough, tough little boy, and he grabbed his sister's arm. I was like, you almost shut the drawer on my arm, and grabbed her. And she's in a beautiful ballet. She's at ballet right now. She's in a beautiful ballet outfit, and he's a typical little boy with dirty hands. So we got dirt on the sides, and she was upset, he was upset, and they just kind of snapped at each other. So I calmly removed him from the situation. I was like, you need to go sit on the steps, and we're just going to take a moment. And I told my daughter, I'll help you clean it. She's like, I've got it. It's fine. But just really annoyed, right? And so I was like, okay, I removed him from the situation, put him in a safe spot. Okay, just sit on the steps. Let's think about what just happened and what we could have done differently. And then I went to talk to him, and he wasn't as engaged with me. Normally it's look me in the eye. Okay, what did you do wrong? Why are you sitting here? And we don't always use timeout or sitting on the stairs. I find Matt's out of town, and when I am solo parenting, I am not as patient. And especially when it's been multiple days of solo parenting, and not that that's my excuse for losing my cool, but just to kind of let you know where I'm coming from. And then I also have more issues with my health stuff that they figured out. But I'm on medicine to help detox my body, and my hands really hurt, and they're peeling, and I dislocated my knee yesterday, not doing anything, just standing up. My hips are popping out. So I'm in pain, and I'm just a big hot mess. And so I'm trying to talk to him, and had he have just looked me in the face and was like, Mom, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have done that. And I was like, okay, great. I forgive you. Give him a hug and a kiss. Go ask your sister for forgiveness. It would have been great. But he's looking all over the place and, being all boy-like and just frolicking on the steps, and it's and I'm like, look at me, honey, look at me. And I was like, you can't grab someone. She almost slammed my finger in the door. And I was like, okay, then say, please be careful. You almost got my finger in the door. Don't grab her. I'm like, you can't grab someone. And then I grabbed him. And as soon as I did it, I could tell that it was too rough. And his face was just this look of shock and oh, you can't grab me. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to grab you. But this is my point. You can't grab someone by the arm. And, but I shouldn't have done that. I should have found a way of doing it. And this isn't my big sin messing up as a parent. This is just a little example to show you what I mean. So I shouldn't have done that, right? So I had him apologize to his sister for what he did. And then I told him, I'm like, hey, I'm really sorry. I shouldn't have grabbed your arm. I was getting frustrated that you weren't looking at me for me to have this conversation. Please forgive me. I should not have grabbed your arm. I forgive you, Mom. We hugged. We're over it. Things are great now. I think it's really important to, when we do mess up, to tell the child that we've messed up and ask for forgiveness. I went to a talk last night that Father Mike Schmitz gave here at Franciscan University, and he taught me a whole new term. I have never heard this. I don't know if it's because he's from Minnesota, and maybe it's not a thing. Maybe he made it up. So I'm going to give Father Mike credit for it because I think maybe he made this up. But we're the same generation. And he talked about latchkey kids. And those of you that are closer to my age know what latchkey kids are. And they're kids that would wear a key around their neck when they go to school. So when they would get home and the bus would drop them off, their parents weren't home. They took the key, unlocked the door, and let themselves in until their parents got home from work. And that was just kind of the latchkey kid generation. And he said the result, and I think this is very much true, the result of that generation was parents that are like, I will always be there for my kid. And it turned into helicopter parents. I think a lot of you know what helicopter parents are. We've all seen them. Maybe we've even been them before. I think all of us are helicopter parents to babies because you need to be. Like, you need to watch them. Every single step they take, well, in the beginning, they can't even walk. So every move they make, you're watching them, right? And then once they are starting to walk, you watch every step, and you need to be right there over top of them, like a helicopter hovers over. But eventually your kids are old enough that you let them go off, and maybe they will fall in dirt or even eat dirt, and it's okay. You don't need to still hover. But we've all seen parents, especially moms, that are like, oh my goodness, little Johnny, don't touch the dirt. Oh, dirty. Here, hand sanitizer, and cleans them. And it's like, okay, Johnny, oh, don't touch that. Oh, this playground is not safe because little Johnny could pick this up and eat it. And they're just like way over the top, like being helicopter parents. I don't think I fall in that category much. I feel like I have had moments of it. My youngest was a NICU baby, and he had a horrible, horrible immune system, and he was on a feeding tube. And I didn't sleep for a very long time. And I was definitely afraid of others. Like, I remember having him in the carrier, and people would like come to see how cute my baby is. And I'm like, please don't touch him. Sorry, please back away. Don't touch him. Because if he got sick, we'd end up in the hospital. We had multiple hospital stays, and he just was a sick kid. And he was on a feeding tube for a while. And I was always surprised at how other people didn't know to keep their space. Like, I normally kept him in the carrier, and I could tell people like back away. But every now and again, I'd have him in his car seat, and people would go up to touch him, like to touch his hands. I'm like, please don't touch him. Sorry. Do you see the feeding tube? He is not a healthy kid. Please don't touch him. Like, your germs are really dangerous to him. Like, please stay away. And I definitely was more of a helicopter parent. I mean, for good reason, with him. But even when he got a little bigger, like, I definitely, anytime he fell or anytime he got stung by something, I definitely had a heightened sense of, and I've heard other people that have told me that they have NICU babies and they have the same experience. And so I'm not meaning those parents, but I'm meaning ones that like you have a normal, healthy child and like you're not letting them get hurt, and you like cover them in bubbles and, you know, and like they're almost like walking around in bubble wrap, you know, to like keep them safe and make sure they don't hurt themselves. And I think we all know, okay, that's a bit much. Like, that's over the top. We shouldn't be like that as parents. Like, we need to let our kids be kids and be wild and free. Where we used to live, we had a creek in our backyard. We were on like 5 acres, and it was great. And kids would come and get so muddy. We had a creek that you could swim in and some fresh streams. And then we had a vine, I guess, for lack of a better word. I think it was just straight up a vine. And the kids would go swinging on it, and they'd hang, and then they'd fall into the creek. And most of my friends were really fine with their kids doing it. But some friends were like, oh my goodness, don't do that. How do you know it's not going to break? And I'm like, well, it holds me, and the kids weigh a lot less than me, so I think it's okay. I'm like, but in theory, it could break. It could break, and they can hurt themselves. But it's a risk I'm willing to take. They love it. They love just being wild and free and outdoors and having adventures. And like, my son at the time was probably 10 to 13 when we lived in that house, and him and his friends would just go on these adventures. And if they were walking up and down the creek, they had to take our dog with them, who looks like a bear, who would scare away any potential snakes. And they would just go exploring, and they had so much fun. And most of our friends, like, we wouldn't let our kids have this. This is a no-no and dangerous, and we wouldn't let our kids walk around with this. But sure, exploring in a creek, why not? Go for it. And they come back with wild blackberries or, a little crawfish that they caught or whatever. And so they were just giving freedom to be wild and free. And I think that's good and healthy. Obviously, you don't let a 2-year-old do that. Like even my daughter, who's only like a year and a half younger than him. So she was probably like 9 to 11 when we lived there. She couldn't do that with her friends. They could, but we'd walk up and down. The boys all have like pocket knives and things, like if anything went wrong, they can defend themselves from whatever weird animal they encountered. But it was just to give you an example of like helicopter parents would not let their kids do that. They would not let the kids swing from vines. And maybe you're thinking, I'm a bad mom for letting my kids do that. That's okay. I thought it was okay for my children. But Father Mike Schmitz said a new term that I really liked. He called it the Zamboni parents. And I've never heard the term. And I was like, interesting. He's like, a lot of you maybe are Zamboni parents who the Zamboni is what comes out to the hockey rink. You Northerners know this, all you Canadians know this, but people from the South like me may not know what a Zamboni is. Hopefully I'm pronouncing it right. If I'm not, please write in the comments how I actually pronounce it, but I think it's Zamboni. I'm remembering way back from when I lived in Canada, but that was a long time ago. But the Zamboni comes out and basically, I think how it works is it like heats the ice and then refreezes it. So like all the scratches in the ice get made smooth. Like it smooths everything out. It goes over the ice. And so if you look at the ice before the Zamboni goes over it, there's rough spots. There's areas where like your skate can get stuck. There's like little indents. There's just imperfection all over the place. And the Zamboni comes by and makes it like crystal clear and perfectly smooth. And so when you get out there on that fresh ice, it's so nice to skate on and you just glide and it's just beautiful. And he said that sometimes we do this as parents. And I was sitting in the room and I was like, oh, guilty. Like I'm definitely guilty of that. I think there's times and seasons where that's okay. So when you have a little child, like today I was watching a friend of mine's son at the pool. Excuse my look too. I know I have a hat on, but my hair is just like a big hot mess because I just got back from the pool. But I was watching her little boy and he's almost 1, not quite 1, but he's at that stage where he puts everything in his mouth. So it doesn't matter if it's grass or a Cheerio or a piece of watermelon, it could be a bug, it could be a rock. So at this stage, it's very good to smooth out the area, right? So there was multiple moms there and you'd see them all smooth out the area. Some of them had blankets that they put down, but they look around and they pick up anything that's dangerous for the toddler to eat. Totally makes sense. But I think some of us are still doing that with our 10-year-olds and our 14-year-olds. And I don't think we should be. And what Father Mike was saying was like, he was talking about a friend of his who is, I think like he oversees a dorm, like a college dorm. And he used to, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago, he only dealt with students. So there was an issue in a room. He talked to the student. They work it out. This adult who's like in charge of all the dorms and the college student. They'd work it out. They'd have a conversation. He never once had a parent come in and intervene. And then he noticed that it started changing. I don't know how many years ago it started changing, but at one point it started changing. He talked to some kids and then others he talked to the parents, or he talked to the child and then the parents would call or come in and be like, I need to talk to you about what happened. Okay, here's what's going to happen. You're not going to talk to little Timmy like that because little Timmy's a really good kid. And he's like, I'm sorry, the 20-year-old Timmy who I caught with beer in his room and I told him he's not allowed to have alcohol because this is a dry campus and he's underage. Yeah, our little Timmy, that's not going to happen. If you want to get to him, you go through me. And it's like, I'm sorry, this is an adult? Like, why are you having this conversation with me for an adult? And it doesn't have to be that example. It could be anything. But he was saying now, like all the conversations that he has is with the parents. It's parents coming in and talking. Okay, we'll talk about this. Okay, what's going on? We'll take care of this. We'll take care of this child. And what happens is we have 30-year-old man children living in their parents' basements because they don't know how to function because their mom and dad didn't want to be latchkey parents, which is totally fair. I get that. I don't want to be a latchkey parent either. In fact, I don't even think my kids have a key to the house. Maybe I should give them a key to the house. But actually, no, that's not true. My 14-year-old has a key to the house, but my other kids don't because they're always with me. And if they're not with me, they're with a friend that knows I'm home or whatever. My kids don't have keys. There's been times our two oldest kids are old enough to babysit. So there are times that we leave them home alone, but we have a house phone and they know the rules and like we're trusting them with this responsibility. But and so I am guilty of being not a latchkey parent, of being a Zamboni parent, which I just thought was really interesting to like just shed the light on it. And I'm like, I need to pray about this more. I had someone that called me about my 14-year-old, and their child was 14, and it was a conflict that these two 14-year-olds had, and they wanted, and we addressed it, and it's fine. But I feel like, and I don't know if it's the difference between girls and boys, but it was something where if it was one of his guy friends, they could have had the same argument, the same issue, and they would have worked it out, the two of them. My son is very logical. He's a punk sometimes, so he definitely makes bad choices where I'm like, oh my goodness, why did you do that? That wasn't smart. But he's logical. If you bring something to him, it doesn't matter if it's another kid or an adult. If you bring something to him and you say like, okay, this is not okay. He's very repentant and like, I'm so sorry, I shouldn't have done that. I wasn't thinking. I had a conversation with Kimberly Hahn the other day, and she said something that I love. She said, the thing about teenage boys and between 13 and 18, she's like, you see glimpses of the gentleman they're becoming, the man that they're going to be, and it's amazing and beautiful, right? So I see that. I see and experience it, and I love it. We have an older neighbor across the street who walks his lawnmower. He's like 80. And he walks his lawnmower across the street there's an entrance to a park near our house, and he mows that. And my son, without me saying anything, is like, I'm going to make sure I do that so that guy doesn't have to do it. And so he's done that. And then a buddy of him and him decided they weed whack this whole walkway. They're like, this walkway is not good. People can't walk to the park. So these two 14-year-old boys, it was their idea, spent multiple hours weed whacking this whole area. And it's beautiful. It's the men that they're going to become. And it's really, really good. And so we applaud it. But she said the problem is we also see the little boy that's still inside, and they make really bad decisions. And she said, my prayer has always been that my son gets caught, or my daughter, whoever it is. But boys in particular, she was sharing about her sons. And she's like, my prayer was always that they get caught. So getting caught is God's mercy and his grace. And giving them the opportunity to repent and ask forgiveness is huge, right? And I thought that was really good. And I think that there is something to not being a Zamboni parent to your 14-year-old. There are certain things, like I will tell him he's not allowed to do multiple things. I'm still the parent. I'm still the boss. And recently we were discerning something big for him. And my husband told him, my husband told him, I want to know your opinion in this. Obviously, your mom and I still have the last say. Like, we are making this decision for you because we are the parents, but we want your input. Please let us know so we can better discern this and make this decision. And I think that there's something to that. It's like, okay, this is appropriate for the age in which he's at. And even my daughter, who just turned 13, we had a conversation about something that I didn't think she was ready for yet. She thought she was ready. She gave me her reasons, and I'm like, okay, no, that's fair. I think that's fair. I think you are ready for this. Okay. And so we discerned it together, right? So yeah. So we need to be aware of not being a Zamboni parent. And then another thing Father Mike said that I love, I know I'm seeing comments. I'm going to read them really in just a moment. I know that I'm doing a live. I'm still getting used to doing these live. So I was supposed to be doing something with Kristalina Everett right now. So you can pray for that. I wrote a chapter for a new book she has coming out, and it's through Women Made New. And so I'm going to do a radio show with her, which was supposed to be today, but combination of my Bluetooth headphones don't work. And then this one won't connect to my computer. So I need to go to the dollar store and buy headphones and then hopefully do the interview with her later because our sound was just off. So it's like, I'm already in the recording studio. I have the microphone all set up. All I have to do is turn the lights on and the camera. So I might as well do this now. Yeah, say a prayer for that. This book, I think, is going to be really, really amazing and beautiful. And I'm excited to share it with you. I'll do the interview with her and then I'll do a podcast on it and I can share with you more. It's really, yeah. So for my chapter, at least, it's like, boom, here's my heart. And I think the other girls doing it are very much the same. So I think it's going to be really powerful. But the other thing, Father, I didn't have a notepad because I guess it's like a conference, but this one talk last night was like an open talk so anyone could go. So I went with the kids. But the thing that I love that he said was, your job as a parent is not to make your kids safe. That is not your job. Your job is not to make them safe. Your job is to make them strong, which I love that. Like, our job is to make them strong. I often say, like, our job, especially with homeschooling, I always tell myself, like when I'm struggling with it, I'm like, am I doing enough? Are they learning enough? And my husband's like, what's our goal here? Like, what is our goal? Is our goal to get them into an Ivy League school where they will lose all of their faith? No. Are we okay with them going to university? Sure, but we're going to pick a really good one. And then I'm okay if they don't go to university. Like, if my kid wants to study something that is not taught in a university, there's a great school opening up here. And it's St. Joseph the Worker, and they're working with their hands, and they're learning wood shop, and they're learning all this great stuff. And I'm like, that seems like a better fit for some of my kids. And I almost encourage them to do that than to go to a normal university. But my ultimate goal with my kids is to get them to heaven. So am I doing whatever I need to do to get them to heaven? And then my other thing, like bringing it back a step further, I'm like, okay, what's my goal? My goal is, I think Jordan Peterson says, you should make it so your kids aren't annoying, or something like that. Matt always quotes that. Like, our job as parents is to make sure our kids aren't annoying to other people. So there's certain people that we would hang out with, and Matt's like, those children are so annoying. I'm like, Matt, be nice, be nice. He's like, Cameron, I'm not being mean. I'm not saying that to the kid's face, but I feel like if I was better friends with those parents, I'd let them know. Like, your job is to make sure your kid's not annoying to everyone else. Like, these kids were annoying when they were like 2 and 3, and now they're like teenagers and they're still annoying. Like, you need to teach them manners. You need to teach them not to interrupt adult conversation. They can take part in it for sure, but it's sit and listen. And then when you have something to contribute, you can, but you don't overtalk all the adults in the room. But that made me lose okay, yes. So our goal is to get them to heaven. Our goal is to make them strong, not safe. And I'm not saying do a lot of unsafe things with your kids, but that shouldn't be your goal. Like, yes, you should have your house like baby proof when you have babies. Or right now, like, my kitchen floor is a hot mess. And I had a friend with littles come over. I'm like, I'm so sorry. Matt's out of town. I'm not feeling good. Don't put the baby on the floor. And then one of my daughters is like, Mom, I'll sweep it. I'm like, oh, great. Thank you so much. But it's like being aware. And like right now, my kids aren't going to get hurt by there being crumbs or stains on the kitchen floor. But having like a good, safe environment. But I make sure every night I like get rid of all the crumbs on the counter and wipe it down because I don't want gross bugs or anything in my house. But my goal is to make my kids strong, right? And so like, yeah, they will fall and scrape their knee. But when they get used to that and they're like, okay, like my son stepped on a piece of glass and he's 7 and I offered to help and he's like, oh no, I got it. Like, I just wear the tweezers. I need the tweezers. And that's okay. I'll be done really soon. We have 15 minutes before we need to leave for gymnastics. 15, maybe 20. Yeah, you don't have long. So go eat something, get ready. I'm sorry. I'm doing it live. I'll be out in a little bit. So anyhow, my son, who's 7, got a piece of glass out of his foot. And I was like, hey, good for you. And then I was like, let me clean it out. He's like, I already did with hydrogen peroxide. I was like, cool. Like, I taught you well. Pat on the back. But yeah, so our goal is not to make them safe, but rather to make them strong. And then I also tell them like, that I want my children to know what is true, good, and beautiful. So with my older kids, it's like, okay, you want to see this movie or you want to do this thing. Is this something that proclaims truth? Is it beautiful? Does it talk about goodness? Do we see goodness in some way, shape, or form? And just like having that conversation. Okay, I'm going to read some comments now. Like Jordan Peterson said, kids need to be dangerous. Kids need to do dangerous things carefully. Yes, because they will learn. That's where learning happens. Amen. We have to give them room to make mistakes and to learn from it. And yes, amen. Not bubble wrap their life. Exactly. I have learning disabilities and I think I may also be dyslexic, but I read things wrong. So be patient with me as I'm reading the comments. And you're like, you totally messed up what that said. But I got the gifs of it. Did I make it to the live? Yes. Welcome, Caitlin. You made it to a live. You didn't even know I was going to do one. You know what? I didn't know I was doing one either. It just sort of happened. But yes, no, I think that's so good. And I think that the kids do learn from it. So my son would often go in the backyard. I think he was probably like 10 or 12, and he would run around barefoot. Most of the trails were fine, but I always told him, put shoes on. He's like, Mom, I'm fine. It doesn't matter. One day, he stepped on a rusty nail. He screamed bloody murder. It was really painful. And I didn't right away say, I told you so. We picked him up, we got him help, we cleaned it out, we got tetanus shots, all the things. But you better believe he wore shoes after that. He wore flip-flops. And then eventually he wouldn't again. And he's like, Mom, I make sure I watch every board, because we had a few bridges. He's like, I watch every board that I step on. He never stepped on another nail until we moved into this really old house, and then it happened again. But in the backyard, he learned from that experience, right? And I think that's what happens. Kids learn, okay, this is what not to do. This is what, or if this does go wrong, here's what I need to do to correct it. When I was pregnant with our first, Matt asked a friend of ours, Shane Bennett, who is the founder of NET Australia. So any NET alumni may know who he is. But Matt asked him, or was sharing with him, how scared he was. He's like, I'm really scared of being a dad. I feel like I'm going to mess up. I may hurt my kids. And he's like, of course you're going to stuff up. Of course you're going to mess your kids up. And Matt's like, wait, what? But you have such great kids. He's like, I do have great kids. I've stuffed up. Chanel stuffed up. Me and my wife messed our kids up so much. But who are we to deny our children the healing powers of Christ? He's like, you're going to mess up. Get over it. You will mess up. You won't be perfect. But you point your kids in the right direction. You point towards Jesus. And you're like, that's where you need to go to get healed. Okay? That's who can heal you. He is the physician. He's the divine physician. He can heal all your wounds externally and internally. Okay? I'm going to point you where you need to go. So if you're a new parent and I've scared you, I'm sorry. But all you need to know is by the grace of God, you can do this, and you are going to mess up. But make sure as a parent, your children know where to go to get healed. Point them towards Jesus. Let them get healing. If you're like, actually, I'm older and I have like young adult children and I've stuffed up royally and I've messed them up, you can still point them towards Jesus. You can go with them on a healing retreat. I met a mother and daughter on a Bob Schuchts Healing the Whole Person retreat, and they were there together, which I thought was amazing and awesome. You could bring multiple generations on a healing retreat. Let's see. Oh, thank you. Yes. Yeah. Like, we are not perfect parents. Like, Matt and I both stuff up all the time. Him more than me. No, just kidding. It's pretty equal. I mess up a lot. Don't tell him I said that. But there's some areas that like I've never messed up in, and some areas he's never messed up in. But we've both messed up plenty, and we almost know the area the other's going to mess up in. And so Matt would be quicker, like short-tempered, and more likely to like yell at the kids. And I used to always, when they were young, be like, don't talk like that. Matt, be nice. And it made it so much worse. Or I'd yell at him for yelling at the kids. And it was like, this is way worse. I'm mad at him for being mad at the child. And now all of us are mad and everything's upset. And at one point we had a conflict resolution about it after the fact. And he's like, if you were to put your hand on my leg or rub my back in that moment, that would diffuse me. When you tell me not to lose my temper, or you're correcting me for correcting them, I double down and everything gets worse for everyone. I'm like, huh, that is true. And we tried it out on a road trip. It was the first time I tried it out. And he was getting short with the kids. And my kids are really loud and they don't stop talking. And I had a friend with me that also has 4 kids, and she came with me on a road trip to Florida. We were like an hour into the road trip, and she said, what was it? She's like, oh my goodness, there's been more talking on this road trip than there has on all my road trips, my kids' entire lives. I was like, yeah, there's not a quiet moment. So in fairness to my husband, it can be a lot, especially when you're driving and it's stressful and you don't know where you're turning or you're in traffic. So anyhow, he was getting frustrated with the kids, and I could tell he was about to lose it and just go a little overboard. And I just started rubbing his back. I put my hand on his leg, and then I like started massaging his neck, and he's like, oh, that feels good. And then I don't know if that diffused him or if he clued into, oh, this is what she's trying to do. It was great. He never lost it. And so I was like, oh, this worked really well. And so if there's something that you often do, or Matt can tell when I'm about to lose it, and she's like, kids, nobody asked anything of Cameron, or nobody asked anything of Mom. Can I take over what you're doing? Why don't you just go for a walk or go for a hot bath or something? So I think helping each other as parents Helping our spouse, that's really important too. Or if we see other friends of ours that are just need a break from their kids, especially when you have a lot of littles close in age. It's like, hey, can I hold the baby? Or hey, can I take this toddler to go do an activity, and just really be there for others and support each other. Yeah. So anyhow, I just wanted to tell you not to beat yourself up, and you are going to stuff your kids up, but our goal should be to make our children safe. No, that's not it. Stop, reverse. Our goal is not to make sure our kids are safe. Our goal is to make sure that our kids are strong and courageous and virtuous people. Okay, so we need to be doing things to help instill this in them. And you're going to stuff them up. Just point them towards Jesus so they know where to get healing. All right, God bless. Thanks so much.